Of all of the places that you might expect to find weird things on the internet, I would guess that you're not thinking about Spotify. Although the platform was originally designed to be a place where you could listen to music, and at its core, still is, like any website or service, it's expanded over the years to keep up with the competition. Whether by adding messaging features so you can send songs to your friends, or by broadening the platform to include full-length videos for podcasts and more, year by year, Spotify grows to be a bit more than just a music streaming platform. Though there may be a tad more than just songs on Spotify, you probably wouldn't imagine that people would leverage the platform to do weird or downright horrible things. But, as always, bad actors on the internet will constantly surprise us with the methods they come up with to do whatever they're after. Be it some light trolling, or perhaps stuff that is much worse. Actually, the first thing we're going to talk about here today involves people exploiting a newer feature on Spotify for extremely nefarious purposes. Before we start though, I'll quickly ask that if you enjoyed this video, you like it and subscribe so that you can stay tuned for future uploads just like this one. If you enjoy deep dives into specific websites, just know I also have a video about similar stuff to this on eBay. And if you guys want, I'll keep moving forward with this Horrors and Oddities series. As always, thank you all for watching. The entire timeline for videos on Spotify is a bit wishy-washy. Like many features the platform has, these were initially only made available to seemingly random users for beta testing, and then were eventually broadened to the platform as a whole. There are also different types of videos. For example, these sort of GIF things for artists, and then later on there were eventually full-blown music videos. But in 2020, podcasts were made available when Spotify acquired the Joe Rogan Experience. They were limited at first, but today, essentially, anyone can upload whatever video content they want to Spotify. Almost as if it were YouTube. While this is, of course, geared towards podcasts and things that you would only generally listen to and maybe glance at every once in a while, there's all sorts of stuff on there. Somebody even uploaded a few of my videos in their entirety to Spotify. But if people are allowed to upload whatever videos they want, you can almost guarantee that a certain type of video will show up. Spotify has come under fire dozens of times for allowing porn on their platform. It's been done since the very beginning, with people trying to make album or playlist covers into inappropriate images. But the restraints were fully off when you could make podcasts. News sites in 2024 picked up on a particular case where searching for the artist MIA would show you this video. There's also a Vice article from 2024 with the particularly hilarious title, "What's going on with all the hardcore porn images on Spotify?" That article brought to attention an interesting quirk that is actually pretty well known for people who have encountered inappropriate content on the platform you're watching on right now. Typing in just periods or commas into Spotify, much like the famous full stop punctuation fiasco on YouTube, would land you on profiles, playlists, or podcasts with not safe for work material. I tried this myself, and within 30 seconds was able to find stuff that was sketchy at best and completely inappropriate at worst. I risked completely cooking my personal Spotify for you guys, so make sure to subscribe so that it's at least a little bit worth it. Lots of people seem to be enjoying this stuff, judging by the number of comments there are. This is my personal favorite. This guy worrying about how his Spotify porn community is under attack. And, yeah, man, it is. Your community should be hit by a cruise missile. There are also some clues that suggest that, much like on YouTube or really any other platform, none of this stuff is permanent. People are constantly making and then remaking accounts, playlists, or uploads in an arms race with Spotify, who are constantly trying to eliminate them. Honestly, I don't know what Spotify was expecting here, allowing for any user to upload video content without having the decades of experience with automatic removal and content detection that, YouTube has. It makes so much more sense that these quote-unquote podcasts should have to be verified at least. That's a completely simple thing Spotify could do to make the platform safer, as I'm sure most of their podcast revenue comes from popular, verified ones anyway. That's obviously not a full solution, but it's at least a start. That same Vice article I talked about actually mentioned that some of those sexual podcasts appear to be uploaded by established accounts, meaning some people try their hand at actual podcasting and then sell their accounts to one of these bad actors, or they themselves are hacked. Really, I'm not trying to get into this issue in depth. I just wanted you to be aware that this sort of thing even shows up on Spotify at all, because I'm sure most of you didn't think it was even possible. But this stuff goes much deeper and gets much, much darker. For this next horrifying entry, we're going to discuss the worst possible implications that this sort of content can have. A big question that I myself had when I discovered that you could find this crap on Spotify is, why? What good does it do uploading this sort of thing when you'll be soon caught anyway, and even if you were allowed to do it in the first place, probably wouldn't make any money? Well, let me be the first to tell you that there are absolutely creeps of all kinds on Spotify who leverage people's lack of understanding about the platform's full range of content to fulfill their evil desires. And it's been going on for a while. In 2023, the mother of a victimized child spoke to the press about how predators got in contact with her daughter via Spotify. At that time, there was no private messaging feature on the platform yet, but that didn't mean it wasn't impossible to send covert or targeted messages to other users. Essentially, she explained that in her case, these predators were creating empty playlists with messages in the title or description. They would lure in children with instructions, potentially telling kids to reach out to them on a different platform by leaving their social media handle or phone number, or even asking them to create their own playlist with a response message in their description. As the playlist is shared, more and more children could become victimized. It sounds convoluted, but it worked. I probably didn't explain this perfectly, and it's really impossible to show you guys a visual, but here's an example of what I'm talking about. Somebody, say, makes a playlist with an intriguing or inappropriate cover. The description of the playlist might read, if you're seeing this, create a playlist with the name blank, make up whatever you want. And then all that person has to do is search every day for a playlist with that name to see if someone's received their message. At that point, they and this new user can begin editing their descriptions to talk to one another. It's weird, but it happened. Anyway, going back to the case at hand. The mother in question explained that she had no idea anything like this could happen on Spotify, which was why she let her daughter use the app, even though she's usually strict about this sort of thing. She became aware of what happened when she learned that her daughter's account was terminated for sharing explicit images. Essentially, her daughter had been coerced into engaging in these coded conversations since at least the summer of 2022, where she had been asked to provide personal details, including contact information, and share inappropriate photos and videos of herself, which she eventually did and uploaded in the form of playlist pictures. What comes next is just as terrifying. The mother explained that she immediately reached out to the police and Spotify, but it appeared as if Spotify was completely unprepared for this sort of emergency. She was transferred between customer service representatives and, to her horror, was told by Spotify that they couldn't immediately remove all of these images. She had to resort to finding all of the playlists with photos taken by her daughter on her own and manually report them until they were all removed. Hearing that case makes me sick, and it's even more sickening when you consider how covert the whole operation sounded, which to me suggests that there might have been even more children who were predated on the same way. While I personally never encountered anything involving or targeting children in my 5-minute search, I did find profiles that would redirect you off the platform somehow, telling you to reach out on a different social media platform or join a Discord server or something like that. Rest assured, I reported each and every one of these that I saw. But this dreadful anecdote partially contextualizes those pornographic uploads. Predators have all sorts of motivations, and one of those is simply exposing children to that type of content. Criminal justice literature has shown that sharing inappropriate images is a major step in a potential grooming process. While it might not be the case 100% of the time, many of these uploads and the comment chains that follow them are a way to entice and trap children. We can certainly hope that Spotify changes their policies with regard to this sort of thing, but I find it unlikely they'd be willing to scale back a lot of this technology that they've invested in. With this sort of explicit material being so easy to access on their platform, I'd argue there's no reason Spotify even needs a comment section. It's just dangerous. And the unvetted posts from any user who takes just 5 minutes to make an account is dangerous too. It seems a lot more responsible to restrict these things to verified podcasters, and that would actually probably help Spotify by boosting the quality of recommended content. Hopefully, this video may play a hand in making these changes happen, and who knows, maybe someone at Spotify will even see this. For now though, we're going to move away from this topic and look at something completely different, but still extremely strange. So Spotify is actually a Swedish company, if you didn't know that. And there's a particularly interesting thing happening with the platform in Sweden. There are all sorts of reasons that fake, stolen, or AI-generated content and accounts show up on Spotify, and we'll be talking about them several times throughout this video. But this case is a particularly weird one. I'm going to introduce you to a subgenre of music you have probably never listened to before. Swedish gangster rap. Like any musical genre, it has its own history that blends both the music itself and the sociological mechanisms behind the actual gangs and all that. There are some good video essays on the topic, but it's pretty unrelated to the scope of this video. Now, it's pretty easy to pay for streams on Spotify, just like you can pay for views, followers, subscribers, or whatever on any other platform. This may even boost your own music, helping you gain more popularity and maybe having it eventually snowball into some natural growth. But it doesn't have a great financial rate of return on its own. If you're spending money to get views, those views are going to make less money than the money you spent. Low artist royalties are a massive criticism for Spotify anyway. It doesn't seem like you'd profit all that much from paying people to make bots listen to your content. You would have a net loss in money, albeit maybe a gain in terms of your listener count. This presents a major problem. Unless, of course, you want to lose a little bit of money by design. You may know where I'm going with this now. We're talking about money laundering. An article written in the Swedish Daily News, or SvD, claimed that criminal networks in Sweden are laundering money by paying for streams for rap songs created by people affiliated with a certain gang. These bought songs likely come from legitimate accounts in countries where the subscription costs less, and they basically run a farm to get you more streams. The rappers then share their Spotify check with the gang, which they may be a part of or just somewhat affiliated with. The original article, written in Swedish, relies heavily on testimony provided by an anonymous agent from the National Operations Department. He stated that his group has identified rappers linked to gangs, even scrubbing through their lyrics and music videos for evidence of crimes. According to him, many of these rappers have a high number of listeners on Spotify, which likely generate a sizable amount of revenue. From there, they theorized that some money laundering might be occurring on the platform, which would account for funds they couldn't otherwise pin down. The article then interviews an anonymous gang member who they call Ismet. Without being too specific, Ismet belongs to one of the dangerous gangs in Sweden, responsible for some of the numerous killings and bombings that the country has seen in recent years. He described in detail how, since 2019, his group would exchange cash for cryptocurrency using Facebook, and then pay for bot listeners that were advertised on Telegram. He claims that these listeners would force them onto the charts, which would then double over and create organic streams. He says that occasionally Spotify would catch on to what was happening and seize a payment, but that it was generally profitable, as these Telegram sellers would give them bulk discounts, since they were moving so much money at one time. He then goes on to say that there's a very popular Swedish rapper who's connected to a gang that's done this sort of thing, but he doesn't want to name them. He goes on to describe a sort of symbiotic relationship between gangs and rappers. Being a tough gangster is a selling point for many rappers, obviously, but lots of them don't actually come from that lifestyle. So, according to Ismet, they often team up with a gang who might, say, supply them with rifles or drugs for a music video and offer up protection and a glimpse into said rougher lifestyle, in exchange for a cut of money and participation in this money laundering scheme. SvD says they have 4 other sources saying basically the same story, and points out how a French study from 2023 suggested that the rap genre was wildly overrepresented in terms of botted streaming, suggesting that it's evidence that the same thing is happening in Sweden. SvD then interviews an ex-Spotify employee whose job it was to identify botted streams, and he explains a little bit about their process. Victor claimed that his team and leadership at Spotify acknowledged money laundering was likely a major motivation for fake streams. However, SvD reached out to Spotify, who stated they have no evidence of money laundering involving their platform. They even doubled down and said they had no idea the National Operations Department even reached out to them, which contradicts what the anonymous officer said. Ultimately, it's difficult to believe either side's take on the situation. I can understand why you might be skeptical to listen to anonymous sources. I mean, from my perspective, literally anyone could have said they were a high-ranking gang member. I understand that sometimes people need to be anonymized for sake of their job or being a gang snitch, but it is a little bit harder to take their comments seriously. On the other side of the coin, Spotify has zero incentive to admit that this is happening and invite police investigations into their own affairs. I struggle to imagine how this would even be profitable. I can conceive, based on the data I have on my end with YouTube Studio, how YouTube could identify botted streams pretty easily. I mean, things like inorganic video visits, for example, like a surge in people clicking a URL that comes from Telegram, is a surefire sign of something like that. But with Spotify, I just don't know how they would actually catch people. what their process looks like, or how much fraud they actually detect. What do you guys think, though? Do you think this is real? Or maybe a police officer massively overestimating the issue and a quote-unquote anonymous gangster trolling the press? Let me know down below. If that previous entry was real, it wouldn't be the only financial crime committed via Spotify. In 2024, the FBI caught a musician from North Carolina who leveraged AI-generated songs to pay himself around $10 million over the course of several years. He uploaded thousands of songs to Spotify and other platforms, earning millions a year, and he's now facing serious charges like wire fraud conspiracy, and money laundering. But what are some things that Spotify themselves have done, not just users of the platform? Well, there is one really odd thing found by Penguin, who actually messaged me on Discord about this a few months ago. This wasn't quite enough for its own video, but it fits in very well right here. Spotify's lyrics feature came out in 2021, incorporating data from Music Match, a massive lyric repository. It's kinda nice. I'm sure we've all had the experience of singing a song incorrectly or not knowing what a certain lyric was. You've probably scrolled down a few times just to at least glimpse at the lyrics, either intentionally or just in passing. Now, it's worth saying that Music Match is kind of a platform of its own. It's a tool that creators can use to provide their own lyrics or manage them however they see fit. So what I'm about to describe is more of an issue with them than Spotify. Ted Nugent has a song called Little Miss Dangerous, which obviously because of YouTube I'm not going to play here, but you may have heard it at some point. If you look it up on Spotify and scroll down to the lyrics, you'll find something strange. The lyrics don't match up to the song, and are all actually romanticized Japanese, meaning Japanese words written with Latin characters. For context, this is what the lyrics should look like. An English rock song. Nothing like what we're seeing right here. Now the first thing I wanted to do with this is go to Music Match to see if it's an error on their end or on Spotify's. And lo and behold, if you go to Music Match, log in, and find these lyrics, you'll see the same exact thing. This weird text. However, fortunately for us, on this page, we can very easily copy all the text and just plug it into Google Translate to read what it says. The world is filled with women who are unable to bear the burden of their own affairs. The children of the family are stricken by the fate of their ancestor. The truth and the truth are all the same. The tables of the lost man are all solemn. The body of the lost man. When I was young, I was a lost man. This cute girl in the village gave me a kiss. My friend was so shy and sad that she was a fool. A woman in a strange place, a stranger, was born and raised in a mysterious place. The truth and the truth are all the same. The truth is all the same. I'm so sad. The sky is dark with the sun shining, and this woman is so sad that she's crying out for help. The smell of the air in my chest is so strong that I'm so sad. The whole world is filled with the smell of the air in my chest. And then that repeats a few times. The whole world is filled with the smell of the air in my chest. I'm a Tarakonda, a person who's been killed by a typhoon. Of course, Google Translation is a rough tool, so let me be the first to tell you that that's certainly not perfect. Look at it. At its first read, it's really strange. Talking about people killed by a typhoon, it's just weird. Going off of this translation, it's a poem or a song or something like that, and it seems to touch on themes of nostalgia, with a man reflecting on a girl from his past, and suffocation, or emotional overstimulation. We have the lyrics though, and a little bit of digging reveals that these lyrics come from a song called The Lunacy of Duke Venomania. They don't entirely match up one-to-one, and it looks like the lyrics on Spotify start a little bit into the song and end a bit before. However, this might have to do with the fact that these translations, like I mentioned, are romanji, meaning they're reproductions of Japanese characters, and there's no perfect way to write them out in the Latin alphabet. This song comes from the Evelys Chronicles, which is something I barely grasped at first. As I understand it, the Evelys Chronicles are a dark fantasy saga spanning years and years, mostly told through Vocaloid songs, music created in the Vocaloid program. It's a robot voice, someone basically writes lyrics and sets the tune or music, and then the program actually makes the sound. It's a huge Japanese genre that was popular on Nico Nico and then later YouTube. There's also a lot of series made with this song program, like the one I just mentioned. Now, Duke Venomania is a major antagonist in the Evelys Chronicles, most prominently featured in the song The Madness of Duke Venomania. He represents the sin of lust within the series' 7 Deadly Sins storyline. Now, we know where those lyrics come from, but why are they here? Anyone can put their own lyrics on Music Match, but presumably you verify what you actually own. You can't just go edit other people's lyrics like in Wikipedia. I'm going to assume that someone, somehow, cheesed the system at some point and put these in here. But again, it's just really weird. No other Ted Nugent song, or any other song on Spotify that I can find for that matter, has this problem. Let's suppose that this is a troll, because that's all I can really fathom this being. Is there a particular reason for this specific song? The only thing I can think of is that this song, in the context of the Evelys Chronicles, has to do with a villain that represents lust and brainwashes women, eventually building his own harem. There is the slightest possibility that these lyrics are a bit of a coded jab at Ted Nugent. He has been very credibly accused of extremely inappropriate behavior with underage girls, and has talked about it in a way that essentially admits it. He literally wrote a song called Jailbait, which is about dating a 13-year-old girl. I mean, this guy is dead to rights. Maybe this person chose those lyrics to compare him to the character from the Vocaloid series that uses his powers to brainwash women? I mean, it kind of lines up with a star taking advantage of naive, underage girls, but still, I can't imagine this would be easy to do, and it's just such a weird thing. If any of you guys have any ideas as to why this is, or if you've ever found any other songs like this on Spotify with mismatched lyrics, let me know. I'm particularly curious about this one. We've talked a lot about very odd, illegal, and even predatory things today, but let's wrap it up with something weird. I feel like I have to mention something that doesn't really qualify for its own entry, but is still super odd nonetheless. Spotify ran a commercial in 2018 that I felt like I had to put on here because it's absolutely terrifying. The whole point of this was to advertise killer songs, but look at this thing. This is absolutely nightmare fuel. This ad actually got banned in the UK by the Advertising Standards Authority for being unduly distressing to children. I get it though, it was distressing to me. Anyway, from our last entry, I want to identify something that I found that a Redditor talked about online, which is just extremely odd and hard to really explain. It's very common to find artists that are just so obviously fake showing up on your release radar. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but you can just kind of look and see it. These are a few examples. Now, there's a whole controversy over this. We know for a fact that it's happening. The question is just who is making them. If Spotify is making them, then they can keep more revenue, because they pay royalties based on a sort of shareholder system. The percentage that one song takes up with regard to the total streams in a given time frame determines how much Spotify pays an individual artist. So if people listen to fake music created by Spotify, Spotify can honestly report a royalties distribution where they just put the money in their own pocket. This Redditor started investigating several of these fake artists, starting with a Suzanne Davis. It seems like a lot of these artists, for whatever reason, are connected to one another, showing up in the same playlists and even being featured on each other's songs. This is a very common tactic to make bot streams look more realistic. If you shuffle a playlist for an hour or so, that's much more organic than individually searching up different fake songs. And if you make artists related to one another because of features or whatnot, then them being in the same playlist makes more sense. Anyway, they came up with a list of fake artists that were implicated with one another like this. Then they looked at Spotify for Artists, which provides analytics if you yourself are a musician, and it basically confirms that these artists have lots of inorganic spikes, which, though not conclusive evidence that they're fake, pretty much suggests that they are. Later on, they were able to find stock photos matching the artist, which does pretty much confirm these aren't real. So anyway, we have a bunch of related fake artists. What gives? Google searching these names will lead you to discover a website called Veganism Records, and we'll learn that these artists are all signed to them. See, there's Suzanne Davis's name right there. But at this point, you might be realizing something. Why are there all these veganism connections? The record label is called Veganism Records, there are artists named Bad Vegans, the Vegan Society, and Snagnev, which is vegans backwards. By the way, the record label is probably entirely fake too. This website only comes up to show that these people are connected to Spotify. There doesn't appear to be a real business anywhere. Most of these artists don't go anywhere, and though they connect to one another, they don't show up anywhere else online. Well, most of them don't. Let's take a look at VarietyGate. VarietyGate is also a YouTube channel, and it's full of crypto and otherwise skeevy wealth building and NFT videos, making it look like it's either fake or was hacked. It also has a particularly sus thumbnail. Now, these videos are the sloppiest of slop. Comments are turned off, the descriptions are clearly written by AI. I mean, just look at this.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we are going to be talking about side hustles that women can do to make passive income.
But somehow, this has over 100k views. The Reddit OP also claimed there was another link, saying that below the NFT videos were music videos, which, though gone now, had shots from Lucas Stevens' page, providing yet another link and confirming that VarietyGate is connected to these Spotify pages, beyond just the name itself. I'm sorry, I know this is getting confusing, but it's going to get weirder. Bad Vegans actually has an IMDb page with several movies that appear to have been directed by Snagnev, including a live event with him, where he plays alongside Bad Vegans themselves. Apparently he's a member of the band. And then there's also Invaders of Everywhere, a short film about a rabbit invading a vegan's home. If you click on the director's page, you can find a write-up about him created by John Smith, which describes plenty of other works that don't exist. You can also find several blatantly fake articles about both him and his fake movies. First of all, I really want to thank this Redditor for finding this case, and for the investigatory work that they did. But with all of this laid out, what are we even looking at here? Essentially, everything leads back to fake names like John Smith. It's not apparent who's actually behind this, well, thing, and what the purpose of it even is. Are these fake IMDb pages and articles here to legitimize the obviously fake Spotify profile full of AI-generated songs? I mean, maybe, but how much money can that possibly make? It's not like these are getting a lot of streams. A commenter suggested something that I think is generally the right idea. It's obvious that so much of this stuff is AI generated, if not all of it. If you don't believe that, just read my favorite sentence from this entire thing. He was initially born and raised as a vegan, and later transitioned to veganism. That sort of nonsensical typing was much more common to AI 40 years ago when this stuff was first identified. Maybe at some point the AI got hung up on vegans or veganism as a term, and it just sort of ran with it somehow. Another idea suggested by commenters that I think is interesting is that this is some sort of test. Some tech insider, or maybe even Spotify themselves, doing this sort of thing to glean data. But of course, I have no idea what they'd actually be after. Maybe it's all vegan propaganda. However you slice it, this is weird, and it's most likely just someone's early attempt with an AI to see how far they could take it, maybe even making a little bit of money on the side. But it's really interesting, and I want you guys to let me know if you would like a full-length video doing a deep dive on the subject. If I find anything new, I'll get back to you guys. I hope you all enjoyed taking a look at some horrors and oddities on Spotify. When I was coming up with ideas for this series, Spotify came to my mind pretty early on, but then I thought, surely there's no way I could make a video about Spotify. What weird stuff even exists there? But here we are. I'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon and channel members who got to watch this video a day early. If you'd like to join either of those for just $1 or $2 a month, you'll be thanked in every video and you'll receive early uploads, as well as some exclusive content that's on the way. Thank you all for being subscribed and watching this video in full. You guys are awesome, and you really help me go on to keep making videos. I've been really busy lately, and lots of random things have happened in my life, so I appreciate your patience with the rougher upload schedule. That's all for now, but make sure to subscribe, or else you might never find my channel again. Goodbye for now, and see you soon.